Today we've got 3 die-cast vehicles and 1 figure from Ertl's Star Trek III toy line from 1984. They have left off the subhead title of Star Trek III, which is The Search for Spock, which had to be kind of strange if the movie had just come out and you were at the store and saw there was a Spock figure for a sequel which he had just died in the previous movie. I actually only picked up 1 figure for this line because I'm pretty sure all the Starfleet dudes are the same body with just a swapped head, and the Klingon was just commands a much higher price than any of the other figures, except maybe Kirk. One thing that kind of surprised me was that the figures and the die-cast vehicles are all on the same size card. Most of the back of the card is taken up with a Ertl Collectors Club mail-in application, but the lower half has the entire line listed out, which is a truly abysmal drawing of the Excelsior. Like the nacelles aren't even straight there. The Klingon Bird of Prey and the Enterprise, and then the 4 figures, which are Kirk, Scotty, Spock, and just labeled Klingon Leader. I think his name in the movie is Commander Kruge, who's played by Christopher Lloyd. Probably one of the most effective Klingons in all of the movies. Really, he kills Kirk's son, has a big hand in the destruction of the Enterprise, although he does kind of lose a fist fight to Kirk while Kirk's in like future leisure wear, so that couldn't have been an honorable death for him. Spock's one and only accessory is a handheld, I think it's a Type 2 phaser, and it's a pretty accurate mold for the one that appeared. I know they changed the phasers between 2 and 3. I don't know if the Star Trek 3 phaser appears in 5 or 6, but you shouldn't watch 5 for your own health anyway. So here's Spock, who does not appear in his Starfleet uniform in Star Trek 3, but what can you do? First impressions are he's like a terrible knockoff GI Joe is what it feels like. The plastic feels extremely brittle. He has similar articulation to a GI Joe, except for the legs don't want to go out at all. There is an O-ring on the inside that holds them together. The likeness isn't bad, really, for what it is. You can definitely tell it's Spock. He barely holds his phaser. See? He really creaks and cracks when you move him around. I don't know if you can hear. But, yeah, he feels just really, really cheap. And it looks like he's held together with a screw, just like the G.I. Joe style. His arm style doesn't have the swivel in it, though, like later G.I. Joes did. I do think they did a good job with getting all the broad strokes of the somewhat complicated and stuffy looking uniforms they had in these movies, with even the stitching on the sleeves there, and he's got a shiny gold belt buckle and insignia on his chest, the kind of turtleneck that they have, even his strap that goes across that holds the whole thing together, and it's called the blood stripe down the pants even. There's no difference in the card back for the die-cast ships, so I think we'll just start off with Enterprise. I was excited about these initially because Star Trek ships are such strange shapes that they never stand or lay on their own very well. So these actually come with a little stand. However, it doesn't really fit in the hole that's provided for it, so it just kind of rests on there at a really strange angle. There's no kind of locking in with the tab to the hole that they put on the saucer for some reason instead of the engineering hull. So it's weird. It just kind of holds up the front and lets the back droop down. The ship itself is quite heavy. It's a pretty overall poor representation of the movie Enterprise. The The registry number and ship name on the saucer look good. I think that's a nice small printing on there. It doesn't look to be a sticker, which is nice. The bottom is just a solid slab with kind of minimal detail and an enormous Ertl logo. And the nacelles are where it really suffers. They're too low where they stick out of the engineering hull, and they're super thick. It just doesn't really quite have the right profile of the Enterprise because of the nacelles mostly. And those struts, they just look awful. And here we can compare it to the older Dinky, I think was the name of the company, movie Enterprise. And it's a much better shape. You can see the thinner nacelle struts. The older one is actually all metal, so it has I think it has better details and just is an overall better looking die-cast Enterprise. The disappointing stand has the Starfleet insignia from the movie era on the base there. One thing Star Trek 3 did really well was introduce a bunch of really cool ships. One of the two more memorable is, of course, the Bird of Prey, which we'll look at next. But there was also the Starfleet science vessel Grissom, and of course the Excelsior we'll look at next. And now that I think about it, this Bird of Prey destroyed a Grissom too, so it ends up destroying, or at least having a hand in destroying two large Starfleet ships. So don't mess with Kruge. And here's the Bird of Prey perched precariously on its stand. It does the same thing as Enterprise, where it just kind of rests on there and balances. I do really question the giant Star Trek logos on the wings of the ship. That is a strange choice. Well, they could have just put some of the red detailing on there. It would have been a really cool look. I think overall it's a pretty good but very simplified representation of the Bird of Prey. The guns on the wingtips are just an outright disaster. That looks awful. I see they just added a ton of metal to keep, because it is a very thin protrusion and would have bent as soon as you take it out of the box, but this is a pretty ugly solution. The wings are fixed in place and don't move, which is kind of a bummer, but it's very hollow in the bottom though. It still has quite a bit of weight to it. It is kind of a strange pistachio green. I don't know if that's really coming through on the camera, but odd color. And lastly, we have one of my favorite Star Trek ships of all time, the Excelsior class, which first appeared in Star Trek 3 as this kind of newfangled ship that was going to make the Enterprise look out of date and Scotty hated. It's got the same problem. It's even worse on this one, because if you try to have it level at all, it will fall forward, because it's actually the lightest of the three too, which really surprised me. But it will not balance unless you tilt it backwards. Unfortunately, its nacelles are plastic too, but there it goes. But I think they did a really good job with this one's overall shape. Like, it looks exactly like the Excelsior. I think the nacelles might actually come forward a bit more, but I'm just being picky. But what's not being picky is that the Excelsior in Star Trek 3 has an NX designation, not NCC, because it's an experimental ship, and it's NX 2000. So who knows where Ertl got NCC 1799 from. There is quite a bit of detail on this one. Like, it even has the kind of round part by the shuttle bay there that's on the model. It's got the recess for the navigational deflector, and the bottom of the saucer looks much nicer, although looks like there's some kind of casting problem on the front where the seam is there. I didn't record the opening of this one because it's very yellow. Blister had separated from the card in the mail. Despite my constant griping, I do really like this one. like I was saying, I really like the Excelsior class, and they did a great job with the why do I even try? They did a great job with the kind of complex look of the hull with this one. So there you have it. Ertl's, well, some of Ertl's 1984 Star Trek 3 The Search for Spock toy line. I think they made really good choices with the die-cast ships. Makes total sense. You got Enterprise, Bird of Prey, and Excelsior, kind of the three hero ships of the movie. Spock is barely in the movie, as he's dead through most of it. Kirk and Scotty, yes. Klingon Commander, yes. But where's McCoy? No playsets that I know of for it or anything like that. So kind of weird. I don't know what they expect you to do with it. The figures are extremely cheap. Feel really bad and feel like they're about to break. So I'd say if you were interested in this toy line, go for the ships, especially Excelsior. The stands are extremely disappointing. I could not get Excelsior to balance on this rotating thing, so I wasn't really aware of this particular line. I knew there were some like 3.5 or 3 3/4 Star Trek figures, but I thought it was just the motion picture. So it was cool to run across these. I'm glad I got the ships, especially Excelsior, as you can tell. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.